Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are continuing with the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita as it is. The chapter is entitled Dhyana Yoga. And we are going to conclude the chapter today, but we are going to start with verse number 45. Prayanat yatamanastu yogi samshodha kilvishaha aneka janma samsiddhas tato yati param gatim. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. And when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmanitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So now towards the end of the 6th chapter entitled Dhyana Yoga, Krishna is explaining to Arjuna the symptoms of a topmost yogi so that we can understand how to recognize a topmost or a perfect yogi. We cannot just go by the outer, maybe the dress of the yogi, or maybe with a long beard, or whatever it may be. No, it has to be particular symptoms. And that is how we can recognize. And in this verse, we can see that a perfect topmost yogi is, someone who has been practicing for a very long time. But before we go to the very last verse, which is actual information about topmost yogi, here we can see Krishna has been talking about an unsuccessful yogi so far. So here he says someone who has engaged himself with sincere endeavor, not just hard work, not just trying really hard, but sincerely. In what? In making further progress. Just like, say my son goes to the school and he is probably in the 4th grade. So obviously, after 1 year of school, I would expect him to go to the next grade, progress to 5th grade. So also in spirituality, we need to progress. So here, Krishna is talking about sincere endeavor in further progress. And this yogi has come to a stage where he has washed himself of all contaminations. Now, contaminations have been there in our heart since many births, since many past lives. We just keep carrying forward it. So one needs to remove all the contamination. And in this Kali Yuga, in this age that we are living right now, Krishna has given a very simple process to remove the contamination. It may be in a small degree, maybe in a larger degree, but contaminations are usually there in the heart. And what is the process? Mantra meditation. When we chant and chant and chant, those sound vibrations, they cleanse our hearts. And here Krishna says, then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births. So it is not that, it's an instant, yoga practice that, okay, let me do this for a few minutes and then, there's going to be perfection. No, here the yogi has been practicing for many, many births and then finally attains the supreme goal. This is what Krishna is talking about. Now, unsuccessful yogi then starts to realize gradually that he is actually in a favorable condition. And what is that condition? That this unsuccessful yogi, after many, many births, due to his sincere endeavors and practice, gets an opportunity to be born in a sacred family, which means in a family that is spiritually inclined, a family that is, a devotee of the Lord, or in an aristocratic family. And then that yogi realizes the favorable condition and starts continuing whatever he had left off in the previous birth, which is unfinished task. And he just doesn't continue, but he continues with determination, and then gradually cleanses himself completely. How? By following the process given to us in the Vedas, especially in the Bhagavad Gita. So mantra meditation on a daily basis is a guaranteed process for cleansing the heart of all contamination, because the mantra meditation is complete in itself. When Krishna came down 540 years ago on this earthly planet as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave us this mantra. In fact, it's called a Maha Mantra. That means the greatest chant. Why? Because this mantra, which has the 16 words, they have the potency of all the mantras that are mentioned in all the Vedic scriptures. And that is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this mantra, Maha Mantra, has that potency. So if we take up this process of mantra meditation on a daily basis, then we will see there is gradual progress. How? Because the contamination from the heart gradually starts decreasing. In the very next verse, which is 46, Krishna says a yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. So here there is a direct instruction from Krishna to Arjuna. What should he become? A yogi. Because a yogi is greater than all of these that Krishna is talking about. He's not, when he's talking about a yogi, he's not talking about dhyana yogi, that you become a dhyana yogi or a ashtanga yogi or become a karma yogi. No, he's talking about becoming a bhakti yogi. Bhakti means devotion, which means perform devotional service to Krishna. That is the process. That is how one can become a topmost yogi. Now, yogi means obviously someone who's practicing yoga. And what is the meaning of yoga? Yoga means linking with the Supreme Lord. Now, if the linking or connection with the Supreme Lord is based on fruitive activities, which means I perform some activities and I want to enjoy the fruits of those activities, then that is considered as karma yogi. That person is a karma yogi. Now, if there is, this practice of yoga, the linking process is connected, you can say, of gaining knowledge, empirical, gaining knowledge, then that yogi is considered to be a jnana yogi. But if this yogi is practicing bhakti or devotion, performing devotional service for the Lord, then that yogi is considered to be a bhakti yogi. So these are the differences. It's not that yoga is same for everybody, or any practice of yoga leads to that same result. Or no, that is not true. So what is the purpose of this bhakti yogi? The ultimate perfection in life. That is what this bhakti yogi wants. Why? Because only with the help of bhakti yoga that one can get complete spiritual knowledge. You see, theory is good. What we are hearing is the theory part, that, okay, these are the instructions given in the Bhagavad Gita. This is how one should become a yogi, a perfect yogi, or and that knowledge is there. That's theory. But then that theory needs to be practiced. When theory is practiced, then that leads to self-realization. Then one is able to really, really understand one's eternal position. Then a person, yes, theoretically one may understand, I am not this body, I'm the spirit soul, I'm part of the Supreme Lord, I'm the child of the Supreme Lord. That all is theory. But how do we realize that? How do we understand, practically? By putting it into practice. It's simple as that. So Bhagavad Gita is based on knowledge. It's not blind faith. It's not just, making us, believe in something blindly. No, it's not blind faith. It's full knowledge about the absolute truth. Absolute truth is the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Now, when this empiric knowledge is there without surrender, then it is imperfect. And if there is a fruitive work performed without devotion, then that's waste of time. Then one comes back into this cycle of birth and death, because the cycle of karma continues. Best is to be a bhakti yogi. That means a yogi who's practicing devotion, and then that will lead one to complete self-realization. In fact, in the yoga ladder, the topmost rung of the yoga ladder is Bhakti Yoga. That is what Krishna is talking about. Now, today we will do the very last verse of this chapter, which is verse number 47, and it sums up the complete chapter. Whatever Krishna has explained to us in this chapter, all the 46 verses, the summary of all those 46 verses is in this one verse. And it's a very, very powerful verse where Krishna says, Yogi nam api sarvesham mad gati nantaratma shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tato mataha. What is the translation? Krishna says, and of all yogis, he's making it very clear, all yogis, all kinds of yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. This last sentence, very, very important. Krishna's opinion, the Supreme Personality of Godhead's opinion is that this is the topmost yogi. So these are the symptoms of a topmost yogi or a perfect yogi. What are those symptoms? That this yogi is, endeavoring with great faith, and is thinking of Krishna all the time within himself. And how is that possible? Because this yogi is rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna. And the first step of rendering loving service to the Lord is chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So with all these symptoms, one can recognize who is the topmost yogi. And because this yogi is so intimately engaged in loving service with the Lord, Krishna says he is most intimately united with me, which means that person is always conscious of Krishna, and Krishna is always conscious of such a yogi. And Krishna considers that as the highest of all. That's the highest yogi. That's what he's making it very, very clear, that there should be no doubt. And he makes it, he puts a stamp on it which says, that is my opinion. That is Supreme Lord's opinion, that this is the topmost yogi. So how does one perform devotional service with great faith? Faith is good. Faith is actually the foundation. Without having faith, one cannot really understand Bhagavad Gita. Like it is said, Adau Shraddha Tatha Sadhu Sangha. So when someone has some basic faith, at least believes that yes, there is a Supreme Lord, this whole creation is created by the Supreme Lord, I am not the Supreme Lord. So when one starts having that faith, then when such a person starts associating with like-minded people. For instance, if I'm interested in understanding Bhagavad Gita, then let me associate with someone who has been practicing Bhagavad Gita. So that association helps one to understand Bhagavad Gita, first of all, and not only that, start progressing spiritually. And with that, what happens? Sadhu Sangha, then Bhajana Kriya. Bhajana Kriya means then that person, by associating with someone who is practicing Bhagavad Gita or practicing Bhakti Yoga, then that person start practicing himself or herself. And with that practice, the first step, of course, is mantra meditation. So when we do mantra meditation and associate with like-minded people, with saintly people, with spiritually inclined people, then there is anartha nivritti, which means the unwanted things within the heart, they are removed. Like in the previous verse, we heard about contaminations. So if there are contaminations in the heart, like lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, jealousy, illusion, whatever it may be, in whatever degree it may be, those anarthas, they start coming out of the heart. In other words, the heart starts getting purified. And when the association increases, like all of us, we associate with each other on Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Why? So that we can hear Bhagavad Gita, we can understand, and we can put it into practice. And with that association, the faith starts becoming great. It starts becoming more firm. And then it will be with the practice of mantra meditation, then thinking of Krishna within oneself will become easy. Why? Because we are practicing it. Because this chanting is also a form of meditation. It's a meditation where we hear those sound vibrations that bring peace to our minds and to our hearts. And at the same time, starts removing all the contamination. So when a yogi, someone who's practicing Bhakti Yoga, is following this process with great faith and gradually getting released from contaminations, Krishna says that is the highest of all, because that devotee of mine is intimately united with me. And Krishna says that is my opinion. Now, if the Supreme Lord is saying, this is my opinion, there cannot be any other opinion that will supersede that. That is the highest opinion. So if I know every Tuesday, I keep reminding all of us that it is important to chant the holy names of the Lord. That is why we even do a little bit of chanting after the class, because that can help us to come to that topmost rung of yoga ladder, which is Bhakti Yoga. And it begins with hearing. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is mentioned, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atmanivedanam. These are the 9 processes of Bhakti Yoga. And it first starts with Shravanam. Shravanam means hearing. That we all are doing right now. We are hearing the Bhagavad Gita. But after hearing, then comes Kirtanam, which means chanting. So when we hear and we chant, then automatically there's going to be Smaranam, which means remembrance of Krishna. And that remembrance will help us to think of him most of the time. So this is how it is. And in fact, this last verse, which we read just now, number 47, Krishna says, Shraddhavan bhajate yomam. Shraddhavan bhajate. Bhajate means performing loving service to the Supreme Lord, transcendental loving service. And the best service that we can perform for Krishna is chanting the holy names. So bhajate also means worship, and it also means performing loving service. Now, worship, what does it actually mean? Worship means to, adore someone, to respect someone, to give some honor to someone. And that is the Supreme Lord. But if this service is performed without love and devotion, or without any faith, then that is not going to give good results. It's, see, anything that we do in life, It starts with faith. Of course, there has to be knowledge, but there has to be faith also. Let me give you an example. So here in Atlanta, we have a public transportation, which is called MARTA, and they run the bus service and the train service. Now, MARTA is a very recognized company, that operates these buses, public buses, and the public trains. So if I want to say go from my home to the airport and I want to use this service, so I'm waiting at the bus stop, waiting for the MARTA bus to come. And as soon as the bus arrives, I hesitate to hop on the bus. Why? Because I don't have faith. I'm thinking, oh, I'm not sure if the driver of this bus has a driving license, or I'm not sure if this driver has enough experience, or I'm not sure if this driver knows the way to the airport, or I'm not sure if there's enough fuel in the bus that is going to make me reach the air. So if I don't have faith in a bona fide company, now MARTA is a bona fide company, if I don't have faith, then I cannot reach my destination. So that basic faith I got to have, that yes, MARTA bus service is a recognized bona fide company, which makes sure that the bus has the fuel, the driver has a license and is experienced and knows the way to the airport or wherever the destination may be. So that basic faith is very important. So similarly, when we want to learn Bhagavad Gita, then one should have that basic faith that Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna. And in the Vedic scriptures, as well as in Bhagavad Gita itself, Krishna explains that I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am the Supreme Lord. So if we accept that on that basic faith, then we can build up on this faith. We can start making it more firm, make it great faith. And the chanting of the holy names will help us to build our faith into firm faith. So this is how this whole Bhagavad Gita is designed in such a way that Krishna divides this whole Bhagavad Gita into 18 chapters, into 3 sections. The first 6 chapters, then the middle 6 chapters, and finally the last 6 chapters. In total, 700 verses, just to explain to us how we can break the cycle of misery in this material world, how we can purify ourselves, and how we can qualify ourselves to go to the spiritual world after we give up this body, so that we do not have to suffer anymore. Now, one may say, I don't have any sufferings. I have a good job. I have a good family. I have good health. I have a nice home to stay. I have, a few cars. I have a good bank balance. I'm happy. I don't have. But for how long? You see, the whole process of this human form of life is one is born, then one starts growing old, one definitely gets diseased, and then finally is death. This body also has to come to an end. For how long can this spirit soul stay in one body? For how long? Based on our past karma, some may live for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, maybe 100 years. But what after that? Then it is time to leave the body. And if we have not prepared ourselves for the final examination, which is the death, then we come back into this material world again. Excuse me, then we are born again, and then we go through the whole cycle all over again. So we can see from this very last verse of this chapter, Dhyana Yoga, where after explaining, Ashtanga Yoga, how one should meditate, go to a secluded place in the forest, or maybe in the mountains, Himalayas, or wherever, lay kusha grass, put deer skin on top, sit very erect, and keep the eyes half open, concentrate in the middle of the eyebrows, and keep focusing the vision at the tip of the nose, and then try to think of the Lord within the heart. Is it easy? No, it is not easy, because in this Kali Yuga, where people have not, actually they have short lives as far as the Vedas are concerned, so it is not practical for one to sit down and meditate for long hours. The process of meditation can lead one to self realization or become the topmost yogi only when one practices that meditation for thousands of years. It is not just few hours. So for us in this age, a very simple process is given to us, that if we want to think of the Lord within the heart, if we want to practice, with great faith and sincere endeavor and worship, and so the best way is to start by mantra meditation, and service and devotion is the only way to please the Supreme Lord. And it is, Bhakti Yoga is actually the culmination of all forms of yoga. Excuse me. So Bhakti Yoga is considered to be topmost of all. And in the last verse, Krishna makes it very clear that it is the topmost. There's nothing beyond that. Like there is good, better, best. So Bhakti Yoga is considered the best. So if a person starts performing Karma Yoga, wherein performing activities but desiring to enjoy the fruits, then that person is a Karma Yogi. But when this Karma Yogi starts increasing the knowledge, starts taking on more knowledge, then that yogi from Karma Yogi becomes a Jnana Yogi, because knowledge means Gyan, Gyan means knowledge. With the help of knowledge, then one can become a Jnana Yogi. But when this Jnana Yogi increases the meditation on the super soul within the heart, then that yogi starts becoming an Ashtanga yogi. But the ultimate goal is Bhakti Yoga. One doesn't need to go through all these different steps. One can directly go to Bhakti Yoga just by performing devotional service to the Lord. And devotional service, as I said, 9 processes, starts with hearing, which all of us are doing. And the next step would be chanting the holy names of the Lord, because through the mantra meditation we can concentrate on Krishna, we can think of him within our heart. So Krishna says only those who have implicit faith, not a faith that's shaky, not a weak faith, no, implicit faith in Guru and Krishna, then the Vedic knowledge or the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita is automatically revealed to that person, to that devotee. There's a very nice verse in 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, excuse me, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam tadami buddhi yogam. Buddhi means knowledge. He says, anyone who performs devotional service to Krishna with love and devotion, then Krishna gives them the intelligence to understand. So it is not just our endeavors that can help us to understand the Bhagavad Gita. No, we need the mercy of Krishna as well. And how does he bestow mercy? When he sees the sincere endeavors. So when there are sincere endeavors, then the import of Vedic knowledge is already revealed to that person. So Bhakti Yoga, or you can say Krishna consciousness, means there is no desire for personal benefit. You see, sometimes we see that people take up to spirituality for material benefits, which is also good, but that should not be the goal. Because if we want material benefits in exchange for our devotion to the Lord, then that is actually a business deal. That, okay, Lord, I do this for you, and then you do this for me. So in that business deal, there is no love. When there is love, there is no business deal at all. So according to Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Ma Prapadyate. Krishna says, after many, many births, one understands that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Only very fortunate people get an opportunity to hear Bhagavad Gita. It's not that you saw the event on Facebook page, or someone told you about it, or you heard from a friend, or whatever source there may be, that you are here today to hear Bhagavad Gita. No, this opportunity only comes to fortunate people, someone who has accumulated a lot of piety in their past. They get the opportunity to hear the Bhagavad Gita. And why is that so? Because by hearing Bhagavad Gita, one can understand the purpose of human form of life. Human form is not meant for just eat, sleep, and be merry. No, we have philosophical intelligence so that we can understand, who am I? Bodily designation, I may say, yes, I am Gita, my name is Gita. But that is not the name of the spirit soul, which is within the body. So we get the opportunity by hearing Bhagavad Gita to understand who we are, where have we come from, why are we in this material world, why am I suffering in this material world, and how can I come out of this cycle of birth and death. And only fortunate people who hear Bhagavad Gita get an opportunity to practice Bhakti Yoga. So to become a topmost yogi, this is the summary. This last verse, number 47 of this chapter 6, is the summary of this chapter, where Krishna says, to be a topmost yogi or a perfect yogi, one must have great faith. One must think of Krishna within oneself. It's not very easy, because when a person sits down to think without taking on knowledge, then the mind starts wavering, then the mind starts going here and there. So one may sit down and think that, okay, now I'm going to sit down and I'm going to think of Krishna. That may not happen. Why? Because the mind is not trained. Mind is like a child that needs to be disciplined. So the mind also needs training. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks to Arjuna and he says, one can make one's mind a best friend or a worst enemy. Now, how to make the mind a best friend? By taking on knowledge, by understanding the process, and by mantra meditation. That is how the mind is trained. Once the mind is trained, then senses automatically come under control. And for the mind to be trained, it's important that intelligence is under control. That means intelligence is sharpened with the sword of knowledge. This is what Krishna tells Arjuna. Sharpen intelligence with the sword of knowledge. So when we take on knowledge, the intelligence gets sharpened, then the intelligence starts to train the mind, and the mind starts controlling the senses. So here Krishna says, have great faith, think of me within yourself, and render devotional service, not just devotional service, but loving devotional service. Hearing Bhagavad Gita and performing mantra meditation should not be a force, because if anything is forced, then that's not love. Excuse me. Love means it's freedom of choice. It's not that my spouse can put a gun on my head and say, love me. No, that's not how, out of fear, a person, may say, oh, yeah, I love you, but may not mean that, right? So if love is not something that is forced, it has to come from one's own within oneself. So rendering loving devotional service will lead one to be intimately united with Krishna, and that is the topmost yogi. So these are the symptoms of a topmost yogi, and this is how this chapter ends, with the summary of how we can qualify ourselves to become a perfect yogi or a topmost yogi. And the first step towards this goal is, now of course we today heard how to be a topmost yogi. Now we still have a choice, right? We still have a choice whether we want to follow the instructions given in the Bhagavad Gita, or we want to think about it and maybe take it up later on. It is our choice. Krishna, who is within the heart as the super soul, or in other words, called the Paramatma, he is there to guide us. He is witnessing all our activities and he is there to sanction our desires. So he's just waiting. Like in chapter 15, we will see Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham hridi sanivishto mataha smritir jnanam apohanam cha. He says, I'm situated in everyone's heart as the super soul. And he says, from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. But then he gives us a choice. We choose. Do we want to remember him? Do we want to forget him? Or do we want to get knowledge from about him? Then based on our desire, then Krishna sanctions our desire. So the first step towards this goal of becoming a topmost yogi, topmost bhakti yogi, or perfect bhakti yogi, the first step is mantra meditation. Now, excuse me, what we have talked about this mantra meditation, in almost every class on Tuesdays, but I would like to chant for a few minutes just to, I know most of you come to this class, but some of you have come for the first time, so I would like to chant and give an idea of how to chant and what to chant. So in the chat, I have put the different, of course, links, but at the bottom you will see there is the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So that is, if we chant that on a daily basis, we will be able to control the mind, that can control the senses, and at the same time it brings a lot of peace of mind. It helps us to remove the contaminations from our heart. So I'll just chant. So these are the chanting beads, that I use on a daily basis to chant, and on each bead I chant the whole Maha Mantra. So if you like, sitting at your home or workplace, wherever you may be, you can also chant, and see the difference for yourself. So let me just chant for a few minutes. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So you see, it's very, very simple. So it's my very humble request to all of you that please, if you're not chanting, then please start chanting. And this chanting of this holy name will really, really help us to even understand the Bhagavad Gita. So, right, thank you. Of course, thank you all of you for joining today also. I know some of you have joined for the first time. Welcome. And if anyone has any questions,